A really entertaining game at Anfield between the top two. Did we just about get to the right result in the end, Jamie?
Yeah, I thought Arsenal, fair play to them, second half. You know, you're thinking, I thought that could go on and be sort of 3-4.
They had to really dig deep there, didn't
Yeah, I mean, getting the early goal helps, of course it does, but Liverpool just took the foot off the pedal. But it must have took a lot considering what they've been through in the last couple of weeks. I mean, they've lost 3 games in a row. Then coming to Anfield, 2-0 down at half-time to get something out of it. And if it would have been 11v11, you know, I'm not sure the exact time that Merino got sent off, but I think if it would have been 11v11, I think Arsenal probably would have looked a more likely team going forward to actually want to win the game.
79th minute.
Thanks, Dave.
I didn't want to come in, but I didn't want to interject.
Do you agree? Were they the more likely side at that stage?
Yeah, I think there was growing confidence in that second half. I think the tactical tweak putting Martinelli down the centre, Trossard a bit more to the left, and they're just growing confidence, you know. I think you don't want the season to fizzle out, and they made sure that didn't happen. I mean, you don't want to be embarrassed here. I mean, it's like Jamie said against PSG, it was a tough one to take, so they was looking for reaction, didn't get in the first half, but in the second half they did.
Certainly a really good start for Liverpool. Arsenal seemed to have a lot of the early possession, but Liverpool just had the cutting edge.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool sort of get through them with the ball here, but I thought Liverpool's counter-attack in the first half was devastating. But Saliba, it's really interesting, Saliba. I'm a massive fan of his. It's my position. I think he's out of position there initially. He should be covering Ben White for that reason. You know, if your mate needs a little bit of help. And this is where I want to see real leadership, more from Saliba.
So he's the one who's got to organise there, isn't he?
Well, to get run out and check where Ben White is, you know he's not at right back. You must know he's behind you. And they leave that space because they're a little bit all over the place.
So quick.
It does, but if you look at Carragher in the centre as well, Skelly can deal with it. When he sees the two in front of him, can he get across and just help his teammates out? And I know it happens very quickly, but he's the one who can organise it because the other two are out of position.
And it was a big setback for Arsenal, clearly. They're 2 down 87 seconds later.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really well-worked goal from Liverpool because we talk about jumping a lot in football, and when the ball comes in the centre of park here, Liverpool players everywhere, and then the ball goes out wide. The inside run from Conor Bradley, so it's very difficult to decide with the defender whether to go or whether to stay. And then you get the pullback, which is perfect. But just look on this angle here, the run, what Conor Bradley does, he opens up the space, and now they have to drop. Lovely pass from Salah. Szoboszlai, he sees it, and it's just a lovely little cross across goal, and then he just finishes it off. I think it was really well-worked goal, that was. It was sort of reminiscent of a Klopp side a couple of seasons ago, the way they went on transition. And, yeah, in that first half, they were unstoppable.
Yeah. Listen, great start for Liverpool. It's a brilliant goal. As I said, I think all season that's been a feature of the play on the counter-attack. But I think just going back to... I was looking at Saliba on the first goal. He's not great on the second goal. And for me, I think he is one of the top centre-backs in European football. I've got no doubt about that. And as a partnership, him and Gabriel, as good as anything in the Premier League. I think Saliba's the better player. But I think Gabriel's the better leader, and he needs to bring that to his game if he wants to get to sort of the levels of what we talk about Virgil van Dijk.
So at the moment, do they almost sort of need each other in that?
He needs Gabriel. I think since Gabriel has come out of the team, that's not the same Saliba I've watched. The amount of mistakes he's made in the last couple of months, it feels like he makes a big mistake every game.
But is that something that does come, you know, in terms of more experience, more years, more confidence?
I mean, how old is he now? Is he 24, 25 now?
You're asking a lot of questions, Jamie.
What I'm saying is he's not a kid, and he's probably not quite in his prime, but I'd be hoping that... So, when you're a centre-back, I'd be hoping now that, OK, this guy next to me is the leader.
So 24.
OK, when he moves away, you've got to then become the leader of that back four and organise people and not just play your own game. For me, the great centre-backs, it's not about how good you are and what everything you can do. Oh, he's great in the air, he's got great pace, he's on the ball. You want all that, but you need to affect other people. Think of the great centre-backs down there. Think of Tony Adams. Think of Virgil van Dijk here. They're not just great players. They make everybody else around them look like great players. And that's the thing that I think is still lacking with Saliba. Without Gabriel, he doesn't look the same player. And that's not something you want to be labelled as. I mean, I'd be embarrassed if I was playing centre-back for Liverpool and people saying he's not the same player without him next to him. Now, we say that about a lot of Liverpool centre-backs when Virgil van Dijk's not there. But he's very rarely out, and he makes the person alongside him look like a top player. And if I'm being totally honest, a lot of the Liverpool centre-backs over the last 3 or 4 years, I think Liverpool supporters think they're a lot better than they actually are because of who they were playing alongside.
Can I just ask you, though, as the game moved on, because we talk about positioning. You was all about positioning, being in the right spot. And I played centre half a lot of games, but mainly at right back. But is it because they're asked, what they're asked to do on the ball while they're getting into these positions? So a lot of the mistakes that you're talking about, some of them have been on the ball, the way he wants to play and sort of push into midfield at times, then he's getting caught. So on the first goal, you mentioned about him being really high, but as a coach, as Arteta, he might want him to be really high though. So are we being too critical in terms of them when they're on the ball?
Well, I'm not one of them who, there's certain people, sometimes I hear people say, oh, the centre-backs were better 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was playing. That is absolute rubbish. Centre-back now, for me, is the hardest position to play on the pitch. What you're asked to do on the ball from the goalkeeper, you're asked to be like a midfield player, you're asked to push up to the halfway line, you've got to have the pace of a striker. There's no doubt for me, centre-backs now, how good they are, they're better than what we've seen before, or they're asked to do a lot more. Whether those players of the past could do that today, I think a lot of them could, but it's a very demanding position. But on the first one, we talk about man-to-man. He goes in there. There's only one man. They've got two centre-backs. Eventually, Kivior comes across and takes him. You've got to understand the game and read the game. My mate needs help. You've got to cover Ben White. He's just in no man's land again. But I don't see him sort of... I'm still waiting to see that next step of becoming a great... He's a top player. He's got everything you'd want. But to make that next step of being alongside those people I'm just saying before, Tony Adams in an Arsenal shirt, Virgil van Dijk in a Liverpool shirt, you've got to make that next step, and that is about becoming a leader.
So how did Arsenal find their way back into it, Micah, at the start of the second half?
A little bit more energy. I think Arsenal had a lot of possession in that first half, but didn't really do too much with it. And the tactical change that I mentioned here, you see Trossard on that left-hand side. Bradley goes too late. And this is what Arsenal have been crying out for, someone who can run in between two centre-halves. And when we talk about Arsenal, it's not just about getting a striker, it's about someone who can do that. If you look at the way Arsenal play, everyone wants the ball to feet. With Martinelli now, in the centre run, he will make these runs in between, and then the quality from Trossard is really good, puts it on a sixpence, and then it's just that little bit of movement in between the centre-halves and a really good header from Martinelli.
I mean, we're talking about centre-backs from Arsenal. It's not great from the centre-backs, especially Virgil van Dijk from Liverpool, because, again, you're getting obsessed with men. He's looking at Odegaard. I mean, it's a good ball in, but, I mean, if your centre-backs are in the right position, it's just like an easy
Martinelli just moves in front of him. Would you expect him to go with him in that circumstance?
Well, I just expect me two centre-backs to be in the same line, not one in front of each other. You know, basically a back four across the box, or a back three, if you like, because Conor Bradley's trying to stop the cross. But, as I said, he just got a little bit obsessed with Odegaard there, Van Dijk.
So Trent Alexander-Arnold comes on the pitch and finds himself by a whisker playing Arsenal onside for the equalising goal. But that doesn't tell the full story of this, because you've got a tremendous strike from Odegaard. You've got an unbelievable save as well from Alisson.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, Odegaard would come into the game a lot more, and, you know, Arsenal want to see a lot more of that sort of next season. But it's a great strike, a great save by, for me, the best goalkeeper in the league. And we saw one earlier on today, didn't we, between Leicester and Nottingham Forest, where the attackers taking that chance. Trent there actually just takes a little step forward to try and play him onside rather than run back in with them. I mean, we see that a lot now with defenders trying to play offside, but...
Is it misfortune rather than anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we're talking inches that, you know, credit to Merino, but...
Good movement, though, wasn't it, Jay?
Yeah, listen, it's a great strike. Listen, it's great football all round. It's a great strike. It's a great save from the goalkeeper. And credit to Merino, who's been an absolute revelation in this second half of the season with the problems Arsenal have had up front. I know he wasn't playing there today, but the goals he's got is probably kept them where they are in the league now. It
was a great save, but did it look like quite a late decision about which hand he was actually going to go with in that moment to keep the ball out?
I speak to a lot of goalkeepers, and I always ask them the question, why do you just not go with that hand? But the reason why they go with the other hand is because when it's a higher shot, it's easier for them to get the height with the hand. So that's why he's gone with that hand, but it was an amazing save. Unfortunate with the coming off the post, and then Merino's sharp enough to get the rebound.
Yeah, his sixth really of the season, and at that point, you think, is there going to be a winning goal from Arsenal to cap what would be an amazing fight back? But then it's Merino himself that gets sent off. Yellow card in the first half. I don't think really you can complain about that.
No, it's a yellow card.
Circumstance.
And he knows it as well. Bradley does well. He takes him out. It's definitely a yellow card. No complaints on that one.
And what about this one?
Yeah, I mean, this happens a lot when a player loses the ball. They try and rectify it And that's what it is. I think if somebody else gives the ball away, he doesn't make that type of challenge. So initially he dives in with Núñez, then he goes again because he's just thinking, I don't want to be the one who gets blamed for losing the ball in my own box and we concede a goal. And you see that a lot with people. The heads go, as I said, because they become too emotional, because they're trying to rectify the first mistake.
Arsenal's 6th red card of the season. Is that a problem, Micah?
Yeah.
It's more than any other Premier League team.
It is a problem because you need 11 men on the pitch, and I think some of them have been justified, some of them not, but today that was definitely a second yellow card.
Andy Robertson then thought he'd taken advantage of the man advantage in those final few minutes. And what a moment this would have been for him. The heartbreak.
A great moment because he had an up and down day, did Robertson. Obviously gets the assist.
Spot the foul for us there, is it Canate?
Canate on Lewis Skelly, I think it is there. And really good header by Van Dijk. And then he's sharp, he's alive. And was he just onside? It was...
We think just on he would have been, but there.
Yeah, but the decision on field was a foul, which is a clear foul. You don't need to push him in the face.
Oh, and Robertson's moment was denied. There's the foul. You can see it right in the middle of your shot. Yeah, glowing support from Andy Robertson, and you feel like the entire Liverpool dressing room. Let's just remind you the reaction of the Anfield crowd here when he did come on in that second half to replace Conor Bradley. And you can see it was mixed. There was some support, but there were also plenty of boos in that crowd. But one thing has been really clear is how much support he gets from this Liverpool dressing room, how much love there is amongst his teammates for him, not just as a player, but as a guy, Mike.
Yeah, but he's done an amazing job for Liverpool Football Club. He's a great guy. I've met him a couple of times, and you've got to rally around your teammates. That's what teammates do. Obviously, they're probably a little bit disappointed that he didn't stay at Liverpool, but he's made his decision. He's going to stick to that now, and I've got to get round him. That's what players do. Any other reaction wouldn't be right, of course. Van Dijk signed, Salah signed. I'm sure they've said to him, "Come on, stay." But unfortunately, he's made a decision to go, and they've got to back him.
But it feels, Jamie, almost like at every opportunity that they get, they go the extra mile, his teammates, to defend him.
Yeah, because I think teammates in his dressing room would normally rally around most people 99% of the time. And supporters of any football club or Liverpool right now probably won't want to hear this, but most players probably in that Liverpool dressing room probably want to play for Real Madrid. I've been in a dressing room where players left us to go to Barcelona or Real Madrid, so it's sometimes really hard for supporters to, you almost feel like they fall for it every time in some ways, that you think, oh, this player absolutely loves us, and then they move on and go somewhere else. Players don't think like supporters. So as I said, a lot of those supporters, players in the dressing room will think, I'd love to play for Real Madrid. They would. But Andy Robertson's not daft. He's going to come out, he's going to support Trent, and he's going to support the supporters. Arne Slot, I haven't seen the interview, he's going to do exactly the same.
Should we do that?
Should we have a look at that?
Interesting that he went straight to those key moments when Trent Alexander-Arnold came on and played some quality balls, and a reminder that Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah, the only two players in the last 7 seasons with more assists than Trent Alexander-Arnold. That is the calibre of player that Liverpool are losing. It's really interesting now. The timing of it has made this interesting game-on-game, Jamie. And again, Arne Slot spoke about the responsibility he has to try and get results as Liverpool manager. So does he play against Brighton next Monday? And for the title party here on the final day, does he also play in that?
He doesn't have to get results right now. The title's won. What I would say is, I think, a little bit like me, I think the manager would have been a little bit shocked by how vociferous it was. I think you can expect frustration, a little bit of disappointment. I think the best thing Liverpool supporters can do, if Trent Alexander-Arnold does play another game for Liverpool, because I still think that's up in the air, that might be his last performance. And that might actually be the right thing. Because Liverpool don't need a circus between now and the end of the season. Because this is the story of the game now. But if you're frustrated with Trent, sing Conor Bradley's name, sing Steven Gerrard's name, as was just mentioned in the interview. Don't boo a player, because it just leaves you open to criticism from everybody up and down the land about Liverpool supporters. When you're actually seeing the scenes here 2 weeks ago, you've probably never seen scenes anywhere in the country like that from when a team win the title. That's what Liverpool supporters, in my mind, are about. That wasn't representative of them, and I don't like to think of them as like that, but it was a fact. It happened tonight. So I think if Trent does continue to play, and that's also something the manager's got to think about, because he doesn't need this circus or this talk about Trent. He's moving on. He's left the football
Does he not
club.
deserve that moment, though? Certainly on the last day here, to be part of that group that plays in the last game here, to get his hands on the trophy?
Yes, of course he does, but he doesn't need to come on the pitch. Everyone will come on the pitch at the end of the game. He doesn't need to be brought on. You know, and I've said before, it's not about a send-off or nothing like that. I mean, he's choosing to leave. You know what I mean? I don't agree with that today. But I don't think there should be a thing where he's, you know, giving this big thing at the end of the season, or he's giving a microphone to give a big speech in front of the crowd. He's choosing to leave the football club, and that's why the frustration's there. That, for me, was a step too far. Single the players' names. Don't boo a player who's wearing the Liverpool shirt on the pitch.
Can I just ask you, you're a local lad, what does it mean to play for Liverpool? Obviously, he's been there for, what was it, 20 years now, and it seems a little bit different with Liverpool. You know, the support you have, the trophies that you've won, but it's just become a story that's gone on and on and on. Is this because he is a local lad?
That is it all for me about him being a local player. And what you've got to remember is Liverpool as a city sees themselves, and not just Liverpool football, Liverpool as the city is almost us against the Wales or us against the rest of the country. And the Liverpool supporters think that playing for Liverpool is the utmost. And when you're a local player like Trent is, like I was, you can't see yourself as bigger than the club, or you've almost got to not sacrifice yourself for the club. You're playing for Liverpool, it's a great honour, but you can never be seen to be almost bigger than the club or better than the club. And I always felt when I was playing, and I wanted to be a one-club man, I was determined to be that, but I always think, how do you leave Liverpool? So you can either leave by going to something better. Liverpool supporters are not going to be happy about that, because again, it's like, this is our utmost, this is our ultimate, nothing is better than Liverpool. And also, once I was going to stay, was how do I leave? How long do I stay? Now, I was offered a contract, an extra year at Liverpool, and I turned it down. And the reason I turned it down was because I was a local player playing for Liverpool, because I didn't want to anger or upset the supporters, because I didn't think I was good enough to play for Liverpool every week, or 25, 30 games a season in that last season. And then I just did, I've got to get out. I don't want Liverpool supporters going to the game and turning up and thinking Jamie Carragher's playing, and thinking, oh, I couldn't do that. Now, if I was playing for someone else, if I was playing for Aston Villa, if I was playing for Tottenham or Newcastle, another club in the Premier League, I'd have signed another year. Because I'd have done that for myself. I'd have been thinking about myself. So I think when you are a local player, it was always in my mind that it's almost 50% of what you want and 50% of the club. You never feel as if it's all about you. Now, the frustration with Trent is the fact that he's a local player and he's made a decision for himself, which is fine. That's what 90% of footballers do throughout their career. But when you're a local player at Liverpool, that is not going to go down well. And what you come back to is, when I go back to this interview with Trent, when he was asked on Sky Sport, I think by Harriet, that would you rather win the Champions League or the Ballon d'Or? When he said the Ballon d'Or, that is, even if he thinks that is not the right answer, if you're a local player at Liverpool, it's like the club has to be.
But it was a fascinating insight, wasn't it, into the way that his mind works.
But I think that showed Liverpool supporters, this isn't a local player who thinks about the club more than himself. It's like he's a brand, he's a unique footballer, he's fantastic. The fact Real Madrid won him shows you they are the biggest club in the world. You know what I mean? He's an amazing footballer. But
like you said, Jamie, a unique footballer. His talents are so different to most right-backs that we've seen here and across the Premier League. So Conor Bradley is now being considered, it seems, as the next step, the future for Liverpool. Did he advance his cause today? Now, I know this is not going to be a judgment made across 70 minutes or anything like that, but...
Yeah, I think with Conor Bradley, he's a bit better defensively than Trent. He's not going to bring that offensive spark that Trent brought for so many seasons. But I think he's a real talent. I think
but can he bring that offensive spark in a different way?
But it doesn't, yes, because if you look at his runs inside and out, You get the ball to Salah, even for the goal, he makes a run inside, Salah's got space to do what he needs to do. And it's very difficult to be compared to one of the best right-backs in world football, but every time he puts on a Liverpool shirt, I think he does brilliantly well, whether it's, tackles like that, covering round with his energy. But I just believe, and I mentioned defensively, I think he can improve on this here. And his positioning here as a right-back, and Trossard is right-footed. So when the ball goes out, he needs to engage and get there closer. Then he can dictate to Trossard. But because he waits, it's too long. Now his body weight is going the other way, and that is too easy. So if you're not going to give what Trent's giving going forward, you've got to do this a little bit better. Because he's dynamic, he goes up and down. He made a tackle in the first 5 minutes of the game to get the Liverpool fans up. And he's got so much ability. The next step for him is being second choice to first choice, and that is a different pressure. When you're going for the league and going for the Champions League, you've got to put the performances in week after week, and I think he can do it.
So do you agree, Jamie? Do you think he's ready now to step into the first team on a regular basis and play 30 games in the Premier League, play in the Champions League and the Cups?
Yeah. I think he is. I think you've got to give him his head. We're a football club who give young players a chance. That's a part of the fabric of the club. That happened to Trent when he was a young player. And the fact that Trent's leaving the club, right now, he's the best fullback at the club. He is. In terms of what Liverpool have at left back, Andy Robertson being a great player. He's obviously not quite the same player right now. But yeah, he's the best fullback at the club.
Sort of dynamism, is that if Trent is a different fullback, is that the modern fullback, Conor Bradley?
He's probably, if you look at him, I think he's got almost NBA Andy Robertson on the other side from 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, I've said before, I've never seen a fullback like Trent before. That's why we talk about him so much. There's never been a fullback talked about as much as Trent Alexander-Arnold. And the reason being is because he's unique. We've never quite seen that type of fullback before. But I think Conor Bradley should actually be modelling his game more on Andy Robertson. That's, up and down, getting crosses, getting assists, being aggressive defensively. And I think he's got that. And I think, listen, if you don't give him his head, he's going to leave himself at some stage. You've got to give him in there, give him that opportunity over the next 12 months. And we'll see in the next 12 months if he is good enough.
Emotional, spiky, frustrated, all the words.
The 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes?
Yeah, in the first half, it wasn't good enough. I think against PSG, they started very well. He wants them obviously to start a little bit brighter, a bit sharper than that. That wasn't the case today. It started really well. Didn't have Rice today with them energetic runs, but we can't keep blaming that. I've given Arsenal loads of excuses this season with Saka and Gabriel and Havertz, key players, and I think that does matter over the season.
Is he almost sort of trying to say, look, this is potentially one of the toughest moments in our season because of what we've been through this week. We've just lost a Champions League semi-final. We're coming to the home of the champions, and we have to be there still. Is that what he's driving at? Yeah,
he's driving high standards, but I think the thing that really sort of stood out in the interview for me, and I think Mikel Arteta in the last couple of weeks in terms of his press conferences, he's saying things and he's getting emotional. And at times he's sounding like a little bit of a fan, not so much the manager, I think. He mentioned something out there, he was really strong on how many players they've had sent off this season.
6, yeah.
6, he's putting his hand 6. I think he's convinced inside that there's almost, they've been victims this season in some ways. They've had the 6 sendings off, the injuries that they've had. I think deep down, he thinks they could have won the league without this, and that the red cards are not their fault. It was the referees and the injuries. Now, there's no doubt they'd be a lot closer if they hadn't had players sent off. But that's down to you, the sending off. They are down to you. They weren't all sendings off, of course. There was the one at Wolves, that probably wasn't. But that's going to happen in a season. And the injuries have hurt them this season, but it also played for them last season. With the last 2 seasons, what they've done in terms of competing with Man City was fantastic, but a lot of that was down to having the same 8 or 9 players week in, week out, and him never rotating. But I'm a massive fan of Mikel Arteta. I think he's a brilliant manager. I think the job he's done and to get Arsenal where they are, let's not forget, for a good few years, it was them and Tottenham fighting for Champions League positions. Then they made this jump to compete with sort of Manchester City, and they followed it up again last season. And the team who've pushed Liverpool this season, and this felt like it should have been their season. Now, there's no doubt next season the pressure will be on Mikel Arteta massively in terms of winning something big. And the Arsenal board, if they don't do that, will have a massive issue because they won't want to change the manager, but there won't be that many people saying 5 or 6 years without a trophy, and they'll be looking at how many managers can make that next step. The problem with changing Mikel Arteta, because as I said, I think he's done a brilliant job at Arsenal, is Arsenal could easily become what Chelsea are right now. Or not so much Manchester United and Tottenham this season, but they could go from a team who are coming second year in, year out, to a team who don't actually get into the Champions League. And that's the big conundrum Arsenal as a football club will have in 12 months. If Arsenal go close again but don't actually get across the line.
I suppose the bigger question is, in the wider context, is success finishing second, which they could still do for a third successive season. And incidentally, the last time they did that, they won the double the next season. And reaching a Champions League semi-final.
I think it's progress, but success is winning things. Obviously, don't forget he won the FA Cup earlier on in his tenure.
So what if they win the Carabao Cup next year then?
Well, that's not the one that you want to win. FA Cup, Premier League, Champions League, that's what we're looking at. They got to the semi-finals. There's been progression. But I think success is when you win things. Let's go back to his record. I think finished 8th twice, and then the 5th, and then 2nd twice as well. So they're moving in direction. I think he's the man to take them over the line. I just think he's frustrated in how the season's gone.
It feels like next season has to be the season, because you can't
control everything, though, can you, Jamie? I mean, I just want to show you a graphic. He talked about the luck that's involved sometimes, and and I think you're right. He said sometimes he feels like the luck has gone against his side, but to go 84 points, 89 points, and this season to be second best to Liverpool as well. And all right, it might feel like an opportunity slip, but over the course of the last 3 seasons, only Manchester City have more points, 4 more than this Arsenal side have. But City have got 2 Premier League titles to show for it, and Liverpool have got the Premier League title to show for it this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and
so is that a question of good fortune then, or bad fortune in the case of Arsenal?
Listen, they've come up against the team who won the treble. They've come up against a Liverpool team this season with a new manager, have probably just gone up to another level no one was expecting. And that's why I keep going back to when I'm saying I think Mikel Arteta is a brilliant manager. I do. I don't think he's, he's lucky to be in a job. He's gone 5 years without a trophy. He's created one of the best teams in Europe. There's no doubt about that. But what I would say is also to counter that is I played for a Liverpool team who come very close to winning the league title on 2 occasions. We were up against Alex Ferguson, the most successful manager in Premier League history. The Invincibles with Arsenal, Jose Merino and Abramovich's millions. No one cares about that anymore. They just say to me, "You didn't win the Premier League." No one. There's no but. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many points he's got there. It doesn't matter the fact he's up against Pep Guardiola. It doesn't matter how many injuries he's had or how many red cards he have. Have you won anything? No. That's the end of it.
But he's built something special. I think he's built something special
yeah.
in terms of. Don't forget, Arsenal a couple of seasons ago was very toxic. It was very toxic. Everywhere around it, people wasn't enjoying.
But do you agree with Jamie? Does he have to win next year?
I mean, have to is a strong word. It depends what it is. I mean, if they finish second this season, you'd say 1 more. But don't forget, Man City next season. I'm sure Liverpool are going to be stronger as well, as long as they're competing. And this year in the Champions League.
Who's your favourite for next season? If we say who would you actually be looking at?
Let me see the transfers at least first. But I think he's doing a good job. I think Jamie's right in terms of he's frustrated. He come up against some great. Man City won 4 years on the bounce. One of the best teams in Premier League history. He's doing a good job, but he just needs something to show for all that good work he's done.
Yeah. OK, so 2-2 it finished here, and it was 2-2 as well in our first game on Super Sunday. Belted game it was at the City ground. Nottingham Forest knew that Newcastle had beaten Chelsea early in the day, so a win would leave them in a really strong position in the race for the Champions League, but it wasn't to be. Leicester City had other ideas. The fox in the box was not Jamie Vardy, but Conor Cody. That was 1-0, but what about the response from Nottingham Forest? The quality from Anthony Elanga, from the set piece, and the header from Morgan Gibbs-White, who I think got plenty from the Leicester fans. And then it was Morgan Gibbs-White, the provider for Chris Wood. That was special, Mike.
Special ball and a great header. I thought they'd won the game at this point, but it wasn't meant to be. What a note to Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for Leicester, they'd be absolutely delighted. They had an awful season. But that's one thing they may be laughing at the rivals that they've probably looked like they've stopped them maybe getting Champions League football. But a massive blow for Nottingham Forest. They're so good when they go in front.
Do you know what Buonanotte means?
Good night. Well, it's not quite good night yet for Nottingham Forest, because they will have another couple of bites at this, particularly that Chelsea game on the last day. But you could see the devastation. And then we saw the Forest owner, Evangelos Marinakis, on the pitch at full time, and it looked like he was taking his frustrations out on his manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, which caused quite the reaction in the football world. Not something that we see every day. Well, Marinakis has since released this statement. Today is a day for celebration, because after 30 years, Nottingham Forest is now guaranteed to be competing on the European stage once again, a promise I made to our supporters when we achieved promotion. With 2 more games to go in the Premier League, we must keep believing and keep dreaming right to the final kick in the final game. We are extremely proud and close to Nuno and the team, and we must all celebrate the historic achievements of this season. Everybody, coaching staff, players, supporters, and including myself, we were frustrated around the injury of Taiwo and the medical staff's misjudgment on Taiwo's ability to continue the game. This is natural. This is a demonstration of the passion we feel for our club. Let's all be grateful, passionate, and keep on dreaming. Well, passionate he certainly is. This is what he's talking about then, the injury to Taiwo Awoniyi, who collided with the post. It might well have been a decision that was given on field because it was offside in the build-up to that by some margin. They were going to make the substitution of Jota Silva. This was their last substitution window. You can see Jota Silva saying wait, the Forest staff saying wait. They're looking for confirmation. Can Awoniyi play on? The thumbs up from the medical staff. Yes, he can play on. We can make the substitution, but now they have no more substitution windows available to them. And there you can see the change in prognosis from the medical staff. So he has to go on for those final 8 added minutes of stoppage time, and you can see the condition that their striker is in, who they hoped would find them a winning goal. He can barely move on the pitch. Can you understand, Mike, the frustration that everybody around Forest felt at that moment?
I can understand the frustration and the passion, but I just don't think it's a good look there. I mean, to get into Europe, doing what they've done this season, it's been excellent, but I don't like the way he called out the medical staff there, because obviously, he's obviously told him he's okay. He's put his thumbs up, and then he's changed his mind minutes later, maybe not feeling the best. But I don't like to see the owner coming onto the pitch.
Where does the responsibility lie with this, Jamie? We're talking about the medical staff. Is it the player himself who's he's come on the pitch, he's desperate to get a goal, he's desperate to show he can be the man?
Listen, there's been a mistake by the medical staff. We've just seen that. But I mean, when you talk about a football season from day one to the end of the season, the amount of mistakes and little things that go right or wrong, throughout the season, the owner shouldn't be reacting like that. We know that he's frustrated, like everybody would be. We think of the things he's been involved in terms of like the players they were buying the last, left, right and centre. When Steve Cooper was the manager, it was a mess. Steve Cooper did brilliantly well to keep them up. Nuno has done something, and his staff and the medical staff this season, that was beyond their wildest dreams. Forget Champions League. European football for Nottingham Forest is unbelievable.
But you would also accept, Jamie, I think, that Evangelos Marinakis is a hero amongst Nottingham Forest fans for the level of ambition that he's shown, the passion that he's shown at times where he oversteps the mark, but also the level of his investment, which has taken them very close to the PSR rules at times as well, as we saw last season. Of course, yeah.
So they got fined with that.
And they took their punishment last season.
Yeah, took the punishment. And this season, OK, they've brought players in, but if you asking me who's the biggest reason why Nottingham Forest are playing European football next season, it's the manager, not the owner.
An absolute model in diplomacy.
He's a class act. He's a class act. I mean, everything he said there, played everything down, and that's why the team's doing so well. You can see that the team spirit, the tactics he employs this season, I think he's just been excellent. Everything from start to finish. And to get him in Europe, obviously the headlines will be about the sort of reaction, but him personally, everything he's done this season has been spot on.
I think he deserves a big pat on the back there, not just the interview, the way he reacted on the pitch, because imagine how his emotions were then at the end of that game.
He would have been devastated.
He'd have been absolutely devastated. Your owner comes on, it's a shock to see the owner on the pitch. That in itself, and then he's having a go at him and that, and the fact he just, he tried to calm the situation down, I thought was, he come out of it really well.
Are you like that when you're boss?
That's why I'm not a manager. No way.
The manager runs away from here. But it's a long way from over. I mean, that is the reality. They might have to go and win at West Ham now before they take on Chelsea. But it's not too late. Yes, there is a celebration that they're in Europe, but it could be Champions League, the Holy Grail.
These up to stats again. I mean, they're changing week
It's
by
been
week
quite
out
a drop,
there.
hasn't it? Down to 17.8% for Nottingham Forest now.
But West Ham, I know they got a win today, but we could probably win that game. And then Chelsea at home on the last. Who knows? I mean, it's a great race for fifth, isn't it? To the end of the season.
I mean, I find it very difficult to see them getting in there now. Really difficult.
Can you see Villa dropping points there?
I think Villa. I think if you're going to Old Trafford, last game of the season, Man United's home record is just. I mean, can it get any worse?
Well, it might come down to the fact that can Chelsea beat Man United on Friday night?
Chelsea beat Man United. Whether they can beat Nottingham Forest away, there'll be a big atmosphere there. Maybe even if they can't get Champions League football, I think Nottingham Forest last game of the season, the supporters will be desperate to say almost like a big thank you for the season that they've had. They've got European football, great achievement. I actually think it'll be Chelsea and Nottingham Forest who miss out and Aston Villa get in.
Do you think we'll see Jim Ratcliffe running on the pitch anytime soon to have a chat with Ruben Amorim?
People should be chasing him off.
Maybe not. Another defeat today for Manchester United and for Spurs. 20 defeats in this season now. I think we'll end it there. We could talk all night on this story of today. It's been extraordinary, hasn't it? But thank you, Micah. Thank you, Jamie, as well. Finished 2-2 at the City Ground. Finished 2-2 here at Anfield as well between Liverpool and Arsenal. But will they be the top two when all's said and done in 2 weeks' time? Bye from us.